Assalamu alaikum students. In last class we were discussing the reasoning and knowledge representation. We will continue this discussion today. As we discussed in class that reasoning is basically knowledge base is this knowledge representation is presenting the knowledge to the machine, and reasoning is interpreting the knowledge. Means the reasoning and knowledge representation, machine is presented with the knowledge and then machine interprets this knowledge to make the complicated decision or to perform the complicated task. So we will continue today. We discussed what is knowledge representation, and then we discussed what is to be presented as knowledge. So first thing we discussed was object. All the facts about an object in our real world domain, as Islamabad is capital of Pakistan, guitar contains a string, trumpets are brass instruments, and events are the action which occur in the world. Then we discussed the performance, then we discussed the meta knowledge, then we discussed the facts, then we discussed the knowledge base, and then we discussed the knowledge. Today we are going to discuss the different types of the knowledge. So the procedure, as I told you, that procedural knowledge is knowledge how to do the things, how to do the things, how to do something, how to do something. First example, we were discussing the medical diagnosis system in last class. I will continue this example. Procedural knowledge may be the procedure how to check the temperature. The procedure, the detailed procedure how to check the temperature. For example, the thermometer is placed at the forehead to check the temperature. So the detailed procedure how to check the temperature, or it may be to check the type of the fever, as it to check it's a malaria or some other type, typhoid or some any other type of the fever. We will take second example as car diagnosis and repair system. A car diagnosis and repair system may work in remote areas where no mechanic is available. The driver may use this system to check any fault or any problem with the car to help himself or herself. So our second example, we will discuss the car diagnosis system. Car diagnosis and repair system. As we discussed that procedural knowledge is knowledge how to do something. So if any problem occurs in car, the knowledge of how to diagnose that problem may be the procedural knowledge. For example, if the car stops after heating up, the car stops after heating up, the procedure to look at the problem will be open the car bonnet, check the battery water and see if the water is needed. The next type of knowledge that we are going to discuss is the meta knowledge. Metadata or meta means metadata metadata means data about the data. So it is knowledge about the other types of knowledge about the procedural knowledge about the declarative knowledge. The meta knowledge tells that declarative knowledge contains the information about the things, as we discussed that it's a piece of information that Islamabad is the capital of Pakistan, Ali is student of BScs. So metadata or meta knowledge contains the information about the different types of knowledge, as who created the declarative knowledge and what is contained in the heuristic knowledge, or what is contained in the procedural knowledge, who created the procedural knowledge. So knowledge about the other types of the knowledge is called the meta knowledge. Meta knowledge contains the knowledge about the other types of the knowledge. The next type of knowledge we are going to discuss is the heuristic knowledge. Heuristic knowledge is the knowledge of some expert person in the field. Heuristic knowledge contains the rule of the thumb based on the previous experience, awareness of the approaches, and which are good to work but are not guaranteed. So heuristic knowledge is the knowledge of expert person in the field, and it is based on the previous experience. Heuristic knowledge may tell some rules, some solutions to the problems, and that solution may work or may not. Now we'll take some example of the heuristic knowledge. Heuristic knowledge, as we are discussing, knowledge is the knowledge of expert in the field. Knowledge of expert in the field, in the specific field. Secondly, it tells some rules for the diagnosing and solving the problem. It tells the rules. Thirdly, the solution or the rule told may work or may not. The solution may work or may not work. Now, in the case of medical diagnosis system, for our example 1, medical diagnosis system, the heuristic knowledge will contain the knowledge of the doctor. Heuristic knowledge expert will be a doctor. Secondly, the doctor will tell or it will recommend some drug to the patient. The system will recommend the some drug to the patient. Drug to the patient on the basis of the expert who is doctor. Thirdly, the recommended solution may work or may not work. The recommended solution, the recommended drug may work or may not work. Means after taking the recommended drug, the patient may be fine or he or she may not be fine. The drug may not work. For our second example, which we have been discussing, of car diagnosis and repair system, car diagnosis and repair system. The expert will be, the heuristic knowledge expert will be a mechanic or mechanical engineer dealing with the cars, car mechanic. The expert will recommend some solution to the problem that has occurred in the car. The mechanic will tell some rules for the solution of the problem occurred in car. The solution may work or may not work. May work or may not. Means after following the solution told by the mechanic, the car may be okay or it may not be okay. Next type of knowledge we are going to discuss is the structural knowledge. Structural knowledge is basic knowledge to solve any problem. It describes the relationship between various concepts such as kind of, part of, and grouping of something. It shows the relationship that exists between the concepts or objects. Now we'll discuss this structural knowledge with example. First of all, structural knowledge is structural knowledge. Structural knowledge is basic knowledge for solving the problem. Means it is for the solution, for solving problem. Secondly, it shows the relationship of concepts or objects. It shows relationship for concepts or objects. सोनी सीती है किने सीती है आ नहीं से सही लाइया चोना निकालिया और मोटे थोड़ी चाहिए हमरे कपड़े इन दो मीटर लग गए सारा वाला का जाने को ना इधर मन की पांच छोड़ दो इधर मतलब और कपड़े संभाल लिए उसको है कुछ वाइन नहीं लेंगे नहीं इसमें मैं कभी आने नहीं खाना बहुत कर दिया बहुत ज्यादा कौन है कितना दिया एकला नहीं मुंडा के नहीं साईं दा मुंडा है छोटा छोटे तो बड़ा बड़े तो छोटा नमाज की नहीं अजय बच्चे पढ़ने में उनकी मां कल हाथ उंगल लगाया आज करके मेरा काम के शुरू कर सुनिए सर पजामा कर सी ना अब बटन साफ सुथरे जरा टिच बटन लाओ सोने जे मैं आप ही लावांगी बड़े बटन टिच Now we take the examples for the structural knowledge. Example 1. Which is medical diagnosis system. If patient has temperature and running nose, it is flu. If patient has temperature and running nose, then it is flu. The solution provided will be for the flu. And if the patient has temperature, vomiting, if the patient has temperature and vomiting and muscle pain, then it is malaria. So malaria is decided on the basis of the relationship between the temperature, vomiting and muscle pain. And if the patient has temperature and running nose, the patient has flu. Next type we are going to discuss the knowledge cycle, artificial intelligence knowledge cycle. An intelligent system has the following components for displaying intelligent behavior. To show the intelligent behavior, any intelligent system must have these the components. First one is perception. Second is learning. Perception, learning, knowledge representation and reasoning, planning and execution. This diagram shows the components as we have discussed in last class. As discussed in last slide. So the first, perception. Through the perception component, AI system retrieves the information from the environment. Means it receives the input from the environment. It can be visual input, it can be visual percept, or it can be audio, or it can be any other type of sensor. The learning component is responsible for learning from the data taken through the perception. Responsible for learning from data obtained through perception, means through the sensors. In this complete cycle, the main components are knowledge representation and reasoning. These are the main components: knowledge representation and reasoning. Through knowledge representation, the data or the experience is presented to the system, and system makes the reasoning, makes the interpretation of this data and do the learning. These two components are independent with each other but are also coupled together. The planning and execution depend on the analysis of knowledge representation and reasoning. So these are dependent on analysis of knowledge representation and reasoning. Students, now we will discuss the methods for the knowledge representation. The first method that we are going to discuss is the propositional logic. We are going to discuss first the propositional logic. First, what is proposition? A proposition is basic building block of logic. It is defined as a declarative sentence that is either true or false, but not the both. So proposition is defined as a declarative sentence which is either true or false, but it cannot be both true or false at the same time. Propositional logic has another definition. A proposition or statement is a sentence which is either true or false. Means proposition is a statement or sentence. Proposition is a statement or sentence. Statement or sentence. A proposition is maybe statement or it may be a sentence which is either true or false. A third definition of proposition is if a proposition is true, then we say its truth value is true, and if a proposition is false, we say that its truth value is false. So if a proposition that is called a statement or sentence, if the value of that proposition is true, we say that its truth value is true, otherwise its truth value is false. Now we will take some examples of the propositional logic of propositions. Take some examples of propositions. Propositions. So are these propositions? The sun rises in the east and sets in the west. Is it a proposition? Yes. It returns the value 1. Its truth value is 1. It is a proposition and its truth value is 1. 1 plus 1 is equals to 2. Yes, it is a proposition and its truth value is 1 because 1 plus 1 is equals to 2. B is a wall. Yes, it is a proposition, but its truth value is false. Here is truth value, true. Because B is not a wall. Wall include A-I-O-U. B is not a wall, so its truth value is false. The sun is shining. If it's day, the sun is shining, or if it's night, the sun is not shining. This is not proposition because its value may be true or false. This is not a proposition. This because its value may be true or false. Not a proposition because its value may be true or false. Maybe true or false. Here the sun always rises in the east and always sets in the west, and its truth value is 1. This is maybe this is proposition. Here 1 plus 1 is always equals to true. Here B is never a whole. The sun is, so these are the propositions. But sun is shining. At the night sun doesn't shine. So sun at any given time, the sun may be shining or sun may not be shining. So when may or may not be is the case, then this is not a proposition. The sum of two prime numbers is even. Yes, it is a proposition. Prime numbers. 3 plus 4 is equals to 7. Yes, 3 plus 4 is always equals to 7, and its truth value is true. It rained in Faisalabad, Islamabad on January 30th, 2020. If it rained in Faisalabad and Islamabad on January 30th, 2020, then its truth value is true, otherwise its truth value is false. What is What time is it? Is it a proposition? No, it's not a proposition because it doesn't have any truth value. It cannot be true or false. So this is not a proposition, not a proposition. Because it does not have a truth value. It does not have a truth value. Go out and play. Is it a proposition? No, it's not a proposition. Not a proposition because it doesn't have does not have the truth value. X plus 1 is equals to 2. Now x is a variable, it may have any value, it may have 3, it may have 1. If it's at 3, then this sentence will be equal to 4, and if it has 2, then this sentence will be equal to 3. But if it has 1, then this sentence may be equal to 2. So it's not confirmed that what will be the value of this expression. So it's not a proposition. It is not a proposition because it may have true or false value. So any sentence is not proposition when it may have true or false value, but a sentence is a proposition when it has either true or false value. And a sentence is not a proposition when it doesn't have any truth value, like this and this sentence. Students, now we will summarize today's lecture. We discussed what is knowledge representation and reasoning. We said that knowledge representation is presenting knowledge to machine, and reasoning is interpretation of that knowledge. Knowledge representation and reasoning is presenting knowledge, giving knowledge to a computer system so that it may interpret that knowledge and do the complicated or complex tasks like the human being. As giving the medical knowledge or developing a medical diagnosis system by giving a medical knowledge, the knowledge or from the expert doctor to develop a medical diagnosis system, so that that medical diagnosis system may be used by the patients, just like patients for the treatment, just like doctors do the treatment of the patient. Secondly, we discussed a car diagnosis and The car diagnosis and the repair system. The car diagnosis and repair system may be developed for the to help the drivers in remote areas. If car goes out of order in remote area where there no mechanic is available, this car diagnosis and repair system may be used by the driver to repair the car. Then we discussed what is to be present, what we can represent in our knowledge base. First is object. We said that objects can be represented, then events, performance, meta knowledge, then knowledge base, and knowledge itself can be represented in the knowledge as the knowledge. Then we discussed the different types of knowledge. First type of knowledge we discussed the declarative knowledge. Declarative knowledge is the knowledge that contains some information, some declaration is done, some information is given, as the Islamabad is the capital of Pakistan. Ali is a good student, he is good at programming. Then we discussed what is procedural knowledge. Procedural knowledge tells how to do the things. Then we discussed what is meta knowledge. Meta knowledge is the knowledge about knowledge. Who developed the procedural knowledge, who developed the declarative knowledge, means data about the knowledge, different type of knowledge developed. Then we talked about the heuristic knowledge. Heuristic knowledge is the expert knowledge, knowledge of expert in the field that may be used to solve the problems. Then we discussed about the structural knowledge. Structural knowledge contains the solution of the problem, and it describes the relationship between various concepts. Then we discussed what is knowledge cycle, and then we were discussing the methods for the knowledge representation. And first method for the knowledge representation which we are discussing is propositional logic. So then we discussed what is proposition. Proposition is the basic building block of logic. It is defined as a declarative sentence. So the important thing to remember is that it is defined as a declarative sentence that has either true or false value, but it cannot be true or false, it cannot be both true and false. Then we will discuss different examples of the propositional logic. We said that when a declarative sentence has true value, then it is a proposition. When a declarative sentence has false value, then it is a proposition. But when a sentence may have a true value or may have a false value, as sun is shining, then it is not a proposition. Then we discussed that when a sentence doesn't have any truth value, then it is not a proposition. As what is time? This sentence doesn't have any truth value, so this is not a proposition. So now students, if you have any questions, send me your questions. I'll answer them, and we'll have an assignment at the end of the next class, inshallah. Thank you very much. Stay at home and stay safe.